Well, my dudes, it is the end of the week and it is time to show up. Well, it's the beginning of the week and time to show up. Depending on how you look at it. Beginning of the week, end of the week, it's fucking cyclic. Do the little YouTube dance. Like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. So here's the thing that's on my mind at the moment. I saw somebody earlier today. They said they were complaining that sometimes an older person will say to a younger person, why, when I was your age, I had to do this terrible, awful thing just to get by from day to day. And they were going, well, yeah, but that's bad. You know that's bad, right? That like, you shouldn't have had to do that? That this was a bad thing? And somebody else said, whenever somebody tells me that, I say, oh, I'm so sorry. I wish I'd been there to help. And that just takes the wind out of their sails. And I am here to tell you, motherfuckers, that you did not take the wind out of anybody's sails. You stunned them into speechlessness with your absolute fucking ignorance. Because let me tell you what an old person is trying to communicate when they tell you that. What they're trying to say is, number one, life is not fair. Life has never been fair. Life is never going to be fair. Number two, you're going to have to do some terrible shit, but it's never going to be as bad as it was in my day. Because we've made the world so much better. We always make the world so much better from generation to generation, from decade to decade. Everything gets better. Look, here, I'll prove it, okay? Are you a millennial? Are you Gen Z? Are you one of these later generations that came after Gen X? When's the last time you saw maggots? That's not normal for you, is it? You don't see maggots when you just go out and about in the street. There aren't maggots behind your house right now, right? Because sanitation in the 70s, public health in the 70s was complete fucking garbage. Literally, there was garbage everywhere. It was not a nice time. It was not safe. Walking to and from school, my friends and I would get propositioned by strangers pretty much all the time. A week would not go by that some creepy motherfucker wanted us to come over here and look at this thing. Hey, can you help me find my puppy? Oh, do you want to see the thing I got in my van? These things are stereotypes for a reason. I grew up in that world. You don't. You don't have to live in that world. You make fun of stranger danger and the idea that people on the internet are trying to prey on you. Because that's not reality anymore. That's not the world that we live in anymore. We've done a tremendous amount towards getting rid of all the fucking predators, or at least scaring them out of your fucking feed. At the very least, we've done a fairly good job of that. But number three, most importantly, if you don't do the terrible thing, you're just gonna fucking die. Nothing will ever get better. Everybody always talks about, well, let's look for the causes of poverty so we can stop people from becoming poor. Do you know what the single biggest cause of poverty is? Nothing. Nothing is the cause of poverty. If you started doing nothing right now, if you stopped going to work and you stopped paying your bills and you stopped doing anything to better yourself or improve yourself or advance your life, you would become poor fairly quickly. You just do nothing and you will become poor. Wealth has causes. Safety and security and independence, those have causes. There are things you can do to get there. And the single most important one is to understand you need to be willing to do what you need to do to get where you want to go. And if you're not doing it, well, you shouldn't complain about the results you didn't get with the work you didn't do. Because it's your own stupid fault for not fucking doing it, okay? It's all a question. Everybody always talks about, well, what can I do? I can't do anything, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I got this random interest not that long ago. I got interested in making chainmail. I made this chain. It's too thick for this panda. I need to make a smaller one. I've been thinking maybe, where have I got it? I'm thinking maybe I'll try making a 6-in-1 Persian in a smaller ring size like that. I think that might be better. If it's just like a little smaller and lighter, that might be good. But I've also been thinking maybe, just maybe I should do the Byzantine. Okay, this is the Byzantine of the same ring size, and this is the Byzantine of a smaller ring size. I think the smaller one, I think that'd actually work out better. But I might actually want to go smaller. But anyway, these start out as baling wire, just regular 14 gauge galvanized steel baling wire. And what you do is you straighten out a length of it with a power drill. You take a pair of pliers and you'll hold one end like so, if I can do it. You hold one end like that, and you put the other end in a power drill. Just a basic power drill. I don't have anything fancy. I think it's right over here, in fact. Yeah, let me grab that real quick. You just throw that into a regular old power drill, a regular old cheap piece of shit power drill that you can buy for 20 bucks. This is the Black & Decker. I think this was actually 30 bucks now that I think about it. And that was actually a while back, so it might be 40 if you bought one now. But regardless, just a standard piece of shit. It's not even a cordless power drill. You don't need a cordless power drill. You just get yourself a drill and you twist them up. And what I use is this screwdriver. I take this screwdriver and I chuck it into the drill and I stick the wire down inside of the chuck with a little loop at the end to hold it in place. And I just run the drill and wrap the wire around it. And that produces all of these little springs, all these little steel springs. Sometimes they get a little fucked up because I'm not that great at this. I'm not perfect at it. I do some good ones, but mostly they end up a little bit snarled in the middle, which leads me to another piece of advice. If you're going to do this, get you some gloves. You will never you'll never regret putting on a pair of gloves before you do something fiddly and industrial like this. So anyway, once you got that, you take a jewelry saw and you snip all of your links. Now, you don't need a jewelry saw. What you can do is you can just take it, you can clip your links with the wire cutters on your pliers like that. That's fairly simple, okay? And on top of that, one of the things that I did was I took an awl and I bored a little hole in the handle of the screwdriver. I don't know if you can see it right there. You can see that little hole right there. And what you can do with that little hole is you take a piece of wire and you can just jam it down in that hole. And then you can wrap the wire by hand. You can just turn the screwdriver and wrap the wire. You don't even need the power drill. All you need is the screwdriver with the barrel of the right diameter. You just grab a cheap collection of them. This is a fairly expensive screwdriver, actually, but this is a cobalt. I like cobalts because they're a pretty color blue. But you see right there, there's that little there's a little spring that I just did by hand. You don't even need the power drill, okay? It's fairly cheap. It's fairly simple. Now, these tools that I'm using, this pair of pliers right here, I got at the dollar store. It's fucking cheap. If you're looking for something you can do that would be artistic and creative and that will produce cool shit, there's stuff like this all over the place. There are all kinds of little crafty things you can do. And then, you know, if you made a bunch of bracelets and shit out of chainmail, you could probably take them to like a craft fair or something and sell them for like 20 and 30 bucks. Probably wouldn't be that hard to sell them. You could make some extra cash that way. Baling wire's cheap. This spool was like 20 bucks. And that's like 100 feet. And I think this here, it does fucking eat wire though. This Byzantine weave right here, I think this ate about 10 feet of wire. That's a lot of fucking wire. But you cut it into those little rings, And then you just weave those rings together and you make your shit. Okay? The question is, are you willing to do what you need to do to get where you want to go? Let me kind of put some of this shit away and clear my space. I got other shit to talk about. I don't want this stuff hanging around and potentially getting knocked over because I'm drinking. And who knows what's going to happen when I've been drinking. The whole point here is not, look, it's easy to do anything. It's not always easy to do anything, but you got options around you. And I would never in a million years say that this is easy, because to make this and that little length I showed you earlier, that little bit right there, that took a few days of work. It took about a week and a half, honestly. But a lot of it was just watching tutorials and figuring out what the fuck I was doing. You know, and what it ended up being was probably 15 to 20 hours of work. Okay? But the important thing is, I had to stop on Wednesday. It's like after doing my video on Wednesday, I did some more rings and shit. And I have trashed my hands and wrists so thoroughly doing all of that work that I had to give them a couple of days off because they just hurt like hell. They really did. It's a tremendous workout, which is great. You know, I think that's awesome. Working on my forearms, that's fucking amazing. And hand winding with this screwdriver, holy shit, that's going to do wonders for my grip strength. I need to put something wider on this. I want to rope wrap this handle to make it wider, because if you really want to blow your grip strength and improve your forearm strength, what you want to do is you want to have a really big thing that you're turning. If you got something really big that you're turning, that'll really work your grip strength. And my grip strength is not the greatest. I've always kind of understood that it's something I'm not great with. I need to get better at my grip strength. But what I'm getting at here is, when old people tell you, I used to have it really fucking bad at your age, we're not saying you should have it really bad. We're saying you're gonna have it really bad. And you're not gonna have it as bad as we had it. But you are going to have it really bad. It's not going to be fair. It's not going to make sense. One of my greatest examples of that is Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase, yes, the comedic actor Chevy Chase from 1970s Saturday Night Live, you know, from Caddyshack and National Lampoon's Vacation, those fucking things. Chevy Chase is a Mozart-level musical prodigy. He has perfect pitch. He can hear a song once and he can play it perfectly forever. He's incredible. He came out of the womb ready to just walk into a career as a concert pianist without having to do shit. Just naturally talented, just could naturally have that if he wanted it. He did not. He wanted to do comedy. In fact, he wanted to do physical comedy. He wanted to do physical comedy of the type that the Three Stooges did, but he wanted to take it to the next level. He wanted to be better than they were. And he went and he worked with Second City, and he worked with Saturday Night Live, and he had his movie career in comedy, and he worked like hell, and he is quite possibly the greatest pratfall practitioner in all recorded history, with the possible exception of Zach Galifianakis, whose talent for physical comedy is criminally underrated. But Chevy Chase is fucking amazing. He was the best in the world for a substantial period of time. But he decided he wanted something else. And what he decided he wanted was, he wanted to be a dramatic leading man. He wanted to do movies where he was the romantic lead. Serious movies. Movies that, he doesn't say this out loud, but I kind of feel it in the subtext. Movies that could win him an Academy Award. Chevy Chase wants an Oscar. He really, really wants an Oscar. And the shitty thing is, if Chevy Chase wants an Oscar, all he has to do is a few soundtracks. He could have one. He could have an Academy Award for Best Soundtrack if he just went and sat at a fucking piano and composed some fucking film scores. He could do it. It's right. It's on his plate. All he has to do is take it. It's right there. Oh my God, he's so much better than Danny Elfman. Jesus. But that's not what he wants. He wants a Best Actor Academy Award. And I don't know that there's a story behind this. I am just speculating. I am just using my psychic powers as a human being that's been on this earth for over a half a century and kind of knows how people think and how people work. My psychic powers tell me that Chevy Chase has a friend, or at least an acquaintance, who won an Academy Award for Best Actor. Now that I think about it, it's probably Bill Murray. Yeah, it's almost certainly Bill. Everybody loves Bill Murray, and everybody thinks Chevy Chase is an arsehole. There is probably a deep and serious rivalry going on there that I just never really thought about. But anyway, it's probably well documented. I've probably heard about it and just forgot. But yeah, it's almost certainly Bill Murray, because Bill Murray has done some great dramatic roles, and he has at the very least been nominated for some awards. I don't know if Bill Murray ever won an Oscar, and I don't think I want to bother looking it up, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had. I would not be surprised if Bill Murray had won an Oscar, because Bill Murray is one of the great improvisational comics of all time. And unfortunately, improvisational comedy is much more popular than physical comedy at this point in human history, which is why Zach Galifianakis is criminally underrated for his physical comedy, because he doesn't do it that much. When he does do it, he's fucking incredible. It's just, oh God, I've seen him do stuff, and the one thing about Zach Galifianakis is his commitment to the bit, and he's so fucking good at it. And you watch him do take after take after take, and you would swear every single one he was surprised. But you've seen him do it like 12 times in a row. It's oh my God, it's uncanny. He's so good. He's so fucking good. And everybody just knows him for Between Two Ferns, where he pretends to be stupid and is really good at it. And they know him for being stoned a lot, which he is, and I'm not a fan of being stoned a lot, but you can't really argue with results, you know? It's just, if you do a lot of drugs and you're artistically brilliant, maybe you need the drugs, dude. I'm not going to second guess you. If you think you need the drugs to be artistically brilliant, fuck yeah, do it. I don't need the liquor, but I like it, so. Anyway, Chevy Chase decided he wanted to be a romantic lead, and he tried to get a dramatic role, and they went, we got a leading role for you. It's in Memoirs of an Invisible Man. Now, this movie was garbage, okay? It was absolute garbage, but it's garbage because Chevy Chase made it garbage to make a point, because he's an arsehole, okay? It was based on a book, and I read the book, and the book was really, really good. And it was an excellent combination of drama and comedy and philosophy, and it's really fucking good. Skip the movie, read the book, okay? But when he did the movie, it's kind of a dramedy. You know, it's half drama, it's half comedy. And I got the feeling, as I'm watching the movie, that what Chevy Chase was doing was not doing a very good job of the comedy, in the hope that they would say, yeah, the comedy's not working. Let's cut the comedy and make it all serious. which was never going to happen because it's critical. The comedy's critical to it, okay? If you read the book, you understand that the comedy's important. The comedy is critical to the storyline. It's part of the pacing. It's part of the philosophy. It's part of the drama. It has to be there. This was never going to happen. But then on top of that, he also wanted to prove that he was a great dramatic actor. He's not. There's this saying there's this saying where people go, acting is easy, comedy is hard, but while a lot of comedians make great dramatic actors, Chevy Chase doesn't seem to get what he needs to get to be a great dramatic actor. Bill Murray does. Leslie Nielsen's another great example. A lot of people don't know that Leslie Nielsen, the guy in like Airplane and Police Squad, he used to be a dramatic actor. Okay, he's a great dramatic actor and he did great comedy. That's rare. The only person I can think of right offhand that has done that has gone from drama to comedy, is Patrick Stewart. He did a fucking amazing job of that. There are dramatic actors who do a great job of comedy, but mostly dramatic actors trying to move into comedy, they suck. Whereas comedic actors moving into drama do a great job. Bob Odenkirk is a great example of that. He's always done comedic roles, and then he did his roles in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and they were starting to verge on real drama, and then he went and did the film Nobody, and he was fucking great because Bob Odenkirk has worked like hell, and he's a great dramatic actor in addition to being a great comedic actor. Because while a little comedy does not typically make drama better, a little drama absolutely makes comedy better. So the problem is that Chevy Chase, when he was trying to prove that he was a great dramatic actor, he didn't. In fact, what he proved was that he's not very good. And I get the sense that now he's kind of pissy about that. I can't say I blame him, okay? But fundamentally, what went wrong there was Chevy Chase thought that because he had paid his dues, because he had worked so hard and suffered so much to become a great comedic actor, that paying those dues counted for being a great dramatic actor. It doesn't. I've had a fairly similar experience, although the first half of it is flipped. I was always very good with computers. I was always very good at programming. I was very good at putting computers together and building electronics and stuff, all of that sort of thing. I was always very good at it. Natural talent, natural aptitude. Pissed my dad off because he went to tech school for it and was never very good. I'm still not very good at, I can't solder for shit. I know what needs to be soldered where, but my soldering chops are just, no, I'm not very good. I have a very nice fancy soldering station. It's one of those things where, I have this very, very nice soldering station with a temperature control and all kinds of stuff, and it's a wonderful thing to have. But yeah, I used to think the problem was my tools. It is absolutely not my tools. I know better than to think it's my tools. I don't. I've got so much experience with the poor craftsman blames his tools. Okay, if you're good at what you do, your tools are not the problem. If you suck at what you do, the tools are not going to fix it. Okay, but regardless, I was always very good at the computer stuff and at the electronic stuff. But that is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an agricultural geneticist, which is very complex, but fundamentally, it's biology. I wanted to work in the hard sciences. I wanted to work in biology. I wanted to help find new ways to grow more crops in less time so we could feed the world, because I grew up in a world where that was a very real concern, that people were going to be food insecure. Oh, shit, we actually are. Holy fuck, when did that happen? Oh, yeah, it was that dipshit we elected. Anyway, I wanted to work in biology, and the problem was when I worked hard to make my way into biology, I did not and fundamentally could not work hard enough to make my way into the field that I wanted to be in. So I had to go and work in computers anyway, and I worked in computers for a long, long time. And I paid my dues working in computers. I learned all of the stuff that I needed to learn and practiced all the stuff I needed to practice and worked my way up from working at little no-name places and working at startups and working for the government. And then I went and I worked at Microsoft. And eventually, when I stopped working in computers and I decided that I wanted to be an artist, to work on my art, it was very frustrating going from I'm very good at what I do. I know what I'm doing. I know how to do it. I have the training, the education, the experience. I have everything that I need to do what I need to do. And then I sit down at a paint program and I'm like Patrick Starr with the fucking board nailed to his forehead. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. It's hard to go back to that. It's really, really hard to go back to that. But you have to. You don't have a choice. And I've been 6 years working on this, and I've been doing this for 6 years. Why have I not paid my dues yet? Because I didn't pay them. Because at no point in this 6 years have I really suffered to make my art happen. And I just kind of, poke around the edges. I do a little here, I do a little there. Not for nothing, but I put some time in when I got some time. I started doing these weekly videos, originally streaming them. But I started doing these weekly videos every week. The reason I'm doing these is because I would go months on end and I would not touch a pencil or any paper or any kind of program for making art. And I have got to spend at least 20 to 30 minutes every single week working on this. I'm never going to get anywhere. And that's critical. You have to habituate around things if you're going to get good at them. And the fundamentals can be complex. Ooh, that's a good subject. I should talk about that. I should talk about fundamentals. I should do that. I'm comfortable talking about fundamentals. It's a thing that I've done before, and I feel like I did it well, and I do so many things these days that I don't think I'm doing well because I haven't done them before. Like this whole chainmail thing. But, yeah, let's talk a little bit about the things that you need to work on. Just by way of pointing out, it doesn't matter how unfair it is. There are no dues to pay. You just have to do what you need to do to get where you want to go. That's all there is to it. Let's click on over here to Clip Studio Paint. Let's refill my glass real quick. Because Lord knows what I really need is more to drink. Anyway, the most important fundamental to understand is line, shape, and form. This is kind of where you start. Okay, I'm going to come over here to my notes layer, and I'm going to say line, shape, and form. When I say line, shape, and form, you may not know exactly what I'm talking about, but we all know what a line is, right? A line goes from point A to point B. Okay, so you can put a point here, you say point A, you say point B, and you draw a line from point A to point B. Drawing lines, that's the core of all drawing, but the thing is, there's line quality. There's starting your line, there's doing your line very lightly, there's doing your line very heavily, there's doing your line lightly and then heavily, heavily and then lightly. There's starting light, getting heavy, and then going light again. There's starting heavy, going light, and then going heavy again. I'm not great at all of these. But line quality is definitely a thing that I should be working on and have not been working on, but that everybody should be working on. And when you get around to shape, when you get around to going, okay, so let's make a shape. It's at this point that you start to understand why you work on lines, because lines are actually edges. The line represents the edge of something. It's where one thing stops and another begins. And the thing about line, shape, and form is that once you get into shape and you start understanding that you're working with multiple things, now you need to understand the three-dimensional aspect of these shapes. But shape is also where you get your first real exposure to perspective. Because if you draw this shape here, right, that looks like you have this shape here, and you just kind of turned it. If you rotated it around this axis, you'd get that shape. It would look like that. And that is all part of the process of beginning to make things look three-dimensional and understanding the cross contours of objects, understanding how these objects relate to three-dimensional space. And you start to put that together, and as you start to get the idea that you're working in three-dimensional space, it is at this point that you start thinking about, let's not spell this. You start thinking about value. And value is a fairly simple thing. It's just a matter of, let me find something there. It's just a matter of understanding that you've got your hard edges and you've got your soft edges. So you've got very light grays and you've got very dark grays. And understanding how to represent the different kinds of colors. You can do it over here. You could say, okay, I want to work in a lighter color. Or you can do it by starting with a darker color and going, well, I'm going to work in a less opaque fashion. I'll just gradually build that up. I'll just gradually make that lighter. And when you start to look at running your values from very light to very dark, what do I have the pressure set to here? I think I have pressure set to opacity. But you begin to understand how to make shading gradually darken from one area to another, why things would be light in one place and dark in another place. You begin to look at color. When you're looking at color, you start thinking about what are the cool colors. Start thinking about what are the cool colors and what are the warm colors. And you start thinking about which ones really matter. You start thinking about which ones are opposites. Like this really dark blue is just opposite the really bright yellow. But you can also do less saturated and more saturated. You could do higher value and lower value. There are all kinds of ways that you can create contrast, and you work on this sort of thing. I deleted some stuff I shouldn't have deleted. There we go. But then, after you start working with value and color, you start to think about start to think about lighting. And you think about how light works, how light comes down and it strikes one plane of an object, which I should really be doing on another layer. You have the light coming down and it's striking one plane of an object. And that light hitting that plane is going to bounce off in a particular direction. It's going to hit this plane less. It's going to hit this plane even less. And your work with value is going to teach you that if this box is, say, green, well, the light is going to give you this color green here, but it's going to be substantially lower value green here because the light isn't hitting it. And it's going to be an even lower value green over here because there's next to no light hitting it. And understanding how light relates to the way that values work, the way that colors work, all of that kind of comes together. And bit by bit, you start to get this ability to make things look real. That's what you're always doing when you're drawing or painting, is you're trying to present the illusion that a two-dimensional plane is actually a three-dimensional scene. That's always what you're trying to do. Well, usually what you're trying to do. There are some special cases, but we're not going to get into MC Escher right now. And beyond this, there's more stuff that you end up working with. There are more fundamental concepts that you begin to work with, and one of them is you start thinking about. Let's go back to our notes. Let's make sure we're on the right brush. And you start working with texture. Start working with texture. Where you have the question of the thing you're looking at, is it soft? Is it hard? Is it made of metal? Is it made of plastic? Is it something shiny? Is it something dull? Is it reflective? Is it a matte finish? You start thinking about the actual shape of the skin of the object. And once you start thinking about texture, you start thinking about drapery, which is just about, if you've got a box like so, okay? You got a box sitting here, and you drop a cloth on top of that box. How is that cloth going to drape over that box? How is that cloth going to look? How are the folds in that cloth going to arrange themselves around the box? And that's really all drapery is how flexible objects move around rigid objects. And that's when you start getting into anatomy. Because anatomy is flexible objects over rigid objects. It's fundamentally, it's skin and muscle and guts over a skeleton. The skeleton is rigid, but the skeleton is also flexible in specific ways, like the rib cage sits on the spine, and the spine sits on the pelvis, and the pelvis supports your lower leg, your upper leg. Here are your shoulder blades back here. There's some clavicles. Here's your upper arm, and here's your lower arm, and here's some hands. And all of this structure is very rigid, but over top of it, you've got muscle and skin, and that muscle and skin drapes, and it will stretch, and it will squish, and it will fold around these rigid parts that in and of themselves have joints that allow them to move and contort and deform, but only in certain ways. And understanding how all of this fits together, all of this is necessary as you're going through all of this. And as you're putting all of this together, Notice how anatomy is at the end and not really at the beginning, where a lot of people are trying to keep it or put it. And then there's composition. Actually putting your images together, putting your scenes together so that they look interesting, so that people want to look at more of your art. So you get likes and shares and all of that garbage on social media that, you know, I never get because my work sucks. But these fundamentals, these 10 fundamentals, holy shit. And perspective is in there. Perspective comes in right here. So it's 11, really. You got line, shape, form, value, color, lighting, texture, drapery, anatomy, and then you've got perspective and composition. And there's a part of me that really wants to find something else in here. I really want to find something else in here. So I go texture, drapery, and anatomy. Those are really about composition because you're composing the texture and the drapery and the anatomy out of things you already understand. You're using value, color, and lighting to construct those. Line, shape, and form teach you perspective. Value, color, and lighting, they teach you... I really want that to be something. So there are 12 things, so I can go fundamentals. And I can go, here's perspective. Perspective is line, shape, form. I really want that to go. You know, here's the top level thing, and here's 3 things, and here's a mid-level thing, and there's 3 things. I really want it to work that way. But right off the bat, I can't think of a way to do that. Value, color, and lighting. What falls out of value, color, and lighting? Is it something I would think of as a fundamental? That is a good question. Because we do know perspective falls out of line, shape, and form. When you start doing shape, you start to recognize that shape can represent form because perspective. Texture. Doesn't texture fall out of value, color, and lighting? Then we're missing something in here with drapery and anatomy. Okay. Value, color, and lighting come together to help you produce texture. Line, shape, and form come together to help you create perspective. What goes together with drapery and anatomy to make composition? Dynamics. Actually, that goes over here. Drapery and anatomy in motion. That's your dynamics. Your lighting is a combination of value and color. Your form is a combination of line and shape with the application of perspective. Lighting is a combination of value and color with texture. Dynamics is a combination of drapery and anatomy with composition. Ooh, I like that. I work my way through stuff a lot of the time. I let you guys see it happen in real time. Because, and this is absolutely fucking critical, because the shit that I do is real. It's not fake. I don't make it up. Well, I do make it up. But I make it up based on actual, real principles and not just based on, hey, I would like this to be true. Let's pretend it is. Anyway, let me talk about form. There are three forms that really matter, and those three forms are the box, this thing, and the ball, this thing, and the barrel, this thing. It's round on one end, square on the other, round here, square here. It's cylindrical. The box, the ball, and the barrel. Those are your three basics, and all of them can be expanded in one or both dimensions. You get a long box. You can get a long ball, or an ellipsoid, rather. And I already showed you the long barrel because I don't have a short one. And on top of that, you can taper them. You can taper the box so you make yourself a pyramid. You can taper the ball and you get yourself an egg. You can taper the cylinder and you get yourself a cone. That's all the shapes. That's all of them. It's just a question of which end's bigger than the other. That can be handled with perspective. Now, a lot of people want to put triangles in there. Triangle and the triangular pyramid, of course. I find these difficult when you're starting out because it is much easier to understand right angles when you're just learning perspective. It's much easier to grasp. And that leads me to a bit of practical advice. You can buy a set of these exact 10 shapes for $30 to $50, and they're painted matte white. And you can find them on art sites all over the place. Or you can go to a website for toys. And you can buy these shape recognition blocks for children for $8. Because, and this is probably the most valuable thing I will ever tell you on this channel or anywhere else, the world is full of lying sacks of shit who will make you pay extra for something by putting the word professional on it. For artists, I don't know how I feel about this thing I bought. This is a proportional divider. It is solid brass. And it's very nice. It works very, very well for what it does. And what it does is, you set the proportion you're interested in along the scale, and then you open it up, and it has the scale on one end and the scale on the other end. Like if I put it on 2, and I open this up right here, and I go, okay, I'm going to put these short bits so far apart. If I flip it around, the long bits are twice as far apart. There's a little side, this is the big side. And this is how many little are in the big, the scale that I look there. So if I crank it up and I go, well, what about if I come up to 3? If I come up to 3, well, there's whatever that is, and there's 3 times that, from there to there. It's 3 times from there to there. These were heavily recommended to me by a bunch of oil painters. Said it's the key to painting great portraits. I still suck every bit as much. I don't know why I wasted my money on this shit. We all like to think that we're smarter and better than the bunch of idiots who waste their money on garbage. And we're not. We're never smarter and better than those idiots because we are machines made of meat. And if you push the right buttons, the monkey will dance. The software is buggy, okay? We don't operate by hard and fast rules as human beings. We operate on heuristics. And heuristics fail. They fail all the time in predictable and recognizable ways. But usually they don't. Usually the heuristic works. Usually, if somebody says, this tool is for professionals, that tool is in fact for professionals. But sometimes that tool is for idiots, and you just gave them money because you're an idiot. I think a large part of why this has not helped me is because I don't really know what I'm doing with it. Because I'm not using it the way other people use it, because I don't know. I think there's a thing that it helps you do, and I don't do that thing, so it's not helping me. We all want the magic button, don't we? We all want the little magic thing that's going to make everything better. We all want a magic talisman. There isn't one. Of course, there never is. But the placebo effect is powerful. It's a highly powerful thing. I'm going to set that over there. Make sure it's not setting on anything important. And, oh, wow, it's been almost an hour. Nobody wants you to suffer. Nobody in this world wants you to suffer, unless they're a dick. Our government right now is full of dicks in the United States, and they literally want people to suffer. They're trying to make people suffer. And that's exactly why they're unfit to govern. You cannot govern a people when you want some of them to suffer. It just doesn't work that way. But normal people, like morally non-reprehensible people, don't want you to suffer. Nobody's saying, I suffered when I was your age, wants you to suffer. They're saying you don't really have a choice. You're going to suffer. You're not going to suffer as much as I did. Holy shit, you're not going to suffer as much as I did. And that's a good thing. I'm glad you don't have to suffer as much as I did. But you're going to have to suffer. And if you try to avoid the suffering, you're just going to make things worse. The suffering is how you get where you're going. If it didn't hurt, everybody would do it. Anyway, do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate every last one of you for showing up. Thank you. It's nice to have you here. And, okay, bye.